Get Rich Education is brought to you by Corporate Direct, Norada Real Estate, and Ridge Lending Group.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education, episode 98. Thanks for being here. I hope that you have had a great week. I'm back to help you build your wealth and cultivate an abundance mindset, because we live in a world of abundance, yet the scarcity mentality is abundant and the abundance mentality is scarce. I've got some specific ideas that will help you build your wealth today. I recently upgraded 3 units in an apartment building of mine, and I think that there are some stories here that will help you. Yeah, after I upgraded 3 units in my apartment building, my property manager's leasing agent was trying to see how much rent they could get for the newly renovated vacant units. Okay, how much is the market going to give us? Now, in order to get more rent and kind of test the top of the market and stretch it out here, here's what my manager did, and here's what you can do when you have multiple vacancies at once. My property manager showed a vacant unit to a prospective tenant and told them that the price is $1,300, okay, for these 2-bed, 1-bath apartment units, $1,300. Now, that was kind of pushing the boundaries of the upper end of the market. Now, if the tenant goes ahead and accepts that $1,300, well, that's great. We just stretched what we could rent the unit for with these new renovations, and we were successful, all done. But now, if you're showing that tenant that unit and you can feel that the tenant doesn't seem to like the unit at that price, and you have multiple vacancies, well, just take them to the unit next door that's nearly identical and tell them that one's only $1,250, and the tenant might like that, okay? Especially since it's basically the same unit for $50 less. The tenant might feel like they're getting a deal, and they're more likely to want to rent it, because previously you just showed them a nearly identical one for $1,300, okay? People want to feel like they're getting a deal, all right? So if you tell them that the first unit is $1,300 and they don't like it, you know what? You don't want to keep them in that same unit that you just told them was $1,300 and then say that same unit, well, okay, we'll just make it $1,250 then. Because if you do that and the tenant sees you cave in on that price right away, then that tenant's going to think that a lot of things are negotiable with you and your operation, okay? They might try to pay rent late or hide a pet on you if pets aren't allowed, because they saw right away that you yielded. Or if that tenant does decide to occupy that property that you caved in on the price on, and you try to raise the rent on them a year later, it's going to feel like a negotiable point to them. So instead, if you've got multiple vacant units, show them an identical unit next door for $50 less than the one you just showed them, and they'll think that they're being offered a great deal, and yet you have not caved in on the price. And it's a totally ethical approach on your part, okay? It's not a bait and switch, because you're truly giving them what you said that you were going to give them in either case, okay? What you've done is you've just cleverly marketed your properties. What you've done is both tested the upper limit of your rental market, and you've also positioned that second unit to look like a real deal to them, okay? I don't know exactly what we're going to call that little tactic, but I'll call it really smart. So give that a try. And of course, you can do that with a property as small as a 4-plex or even a duplex, I guess, if both sides of the duplex are vacant. And I guess you could really even do this with 2 single-family homes, although that gets a lot harder because it's tough to have 2 single-family homes that are a lot alike. So there's a little tactic to keep in your back pocket, or make sure that your manager is aware of that little tactic. Now, what I did when I upgraded 3 units in this apartment building also serves as a great example to you on a small scale for you to see how one adds value in a multifamily property. Okay, we're talking about a multifamily property of 5 or more units. Now, when I had 3 units in the building vacate at about the same time, because tenants were just giving their notice to move out, I had an opportunity to make improvements. Now, 2 of the 3 tenants that left, they were tenancies that I inherited from the previous owner when I bought the building previously, and those tenants were already there a few years ago. And those 2 tenants, they were of a certain disposition where I was kind of happy that they left because they made noise, they loitered, they flung cigarette butts around, and I'm not completely sure of all their behaviors. I don't manage any of my own properties, but now with the opportunity to upgrade the standard of this apartment building, I decided to put what ended up being $45,000 out of my pocket, $45K total, into renovations and improvements on these 3 units. There are economies of scale in having my property manager's contractor knock out 3 units at one time. So they installed new flooring in the units. They also upgraded the very old kitchens with new cabinets, all new countertops. They added dishwashers, and they upgraded to all stainless steel appliances. And tenant-grade stainless steel appliances are pretty affordable, by the way. Okay, so I spent about $15K per unit, $45K total. And by the way, both of GRE's business developers, John Collins and Marcus Whalen, visited the property because it's here in my hometown. Now, here's what those upgrades did for me, okay? And you can think about how improvements like this can help you on your 5+ unit apartment buildings. And those buildings are valued based on the income that they provide, unlike single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, which are based more on comparable sales, not income, but comparable sales from prior months, rather than the income that they produce. So in this apartment building of mine, with the more attractive upgraded units, the rent income on each unit went from $1,075 before renovations up to $1,250 per unit after renovations. So that's a $175 monthly rent increase on each of those 3 units. So that's about, just rounding off, a $500 increase in monthly rent income on that building. That $500 monthly rent increase, that increases both the cash flow by $500, of course, and it also increases the NOI, the net operating income of the building, by $500 a month. Okay, so that's an NOI increase of $6,000 per year. That $500 a month times 12. So what we're going to do is use that higher NOI, that NOI increase of $6,000 per year, to determine the increase in value in the building. So that $6,000 per year, that gets divided by the cap rate, okay, the prevailing capitalization rate for that property type in that submarket, which is probably a little under 8% today. We'll just call it 8%, again, just rounding off. So a $6,000 annual NOI gain divided by the 8%, or 0.08, is $75,000. That's $6,000 divided by 0.08, 8% being the cap rate. So the value of the property just increased $75,000, and my cash flow increased $6,000 for the year, and I'm attracting better quality tenants, and they're in nice new units, so they might stay longer. And that's why I invested $45K in upgrades for that $75,000 valuation increase plus the cash flow increase. So that was a worthwhile venture to me. Now, what is that 8% market cap rate based on anyway? That is simply a matter of supply and demand. The more demand for an investment property, the lower the market cap rate, and the lower the demand for an investment property, the higher the cap rate. When over time, investors gradually accept paying more and more in purchase price for that same level of rent income, that makes cap rates fall, because a cap rate is that net income divided by the purchase price, NOI divided by the purchase price or value. Local appraisers and agents should know what the cap rate is for a certain area and property type. And by the way, remember that cap rates, their calculation, that does not include your mortgage payment, principal and interest. So if you pay all cash for a property, that means that your cap rate and your cash on cash return are the same. They would be the same thing if you pay all cash. Now, did you ever notice that when you're searching for what might be a good property to buy, when you look at a listing for a property, for the most part, they will give you a stated cap rate associated with the property. But you know, the one thing that they cannot do without a caveat is that a listing agent cannot list what your projected cash on cash return is inside a property listing. Did you know that? They cannot put the cash on cash return there unless they add a caveat, okay? So a listing agent, they can state the prevailing cap rate for a specific property because the cap rate does not include your principal and interest payment, okay? So they can't tell you what your cash on cash return for a property is because the cash on cash return calculation includes your mortgage payment. And see, a listing agent, they could not possibly know how much you plan to use as a down payment on the property, or even if you planned to pay all cash for a property. That listing agent also, they couldn't possibly know what your credit score is, which would affect the interest rate that you're going to pay and therefore affect your cash flow from the property. So this is why a listing agent more commonly cites a property's cap rate, okay? They cannot project what your cash on cash return on a property would be unless they include a caveat like, this is what the cash on cash return would be on this building with a 25% down payment, a FICO score of 720, etc. Okay. Now, 1 to 4 unit properties, single family homes up to fourplexes, they have some great advantages over larger properties, but one advantage of larger apartment buildings is your ability to increase the value of the property by making selective value-added upgrades like I just did at that building. Now, to look at which exact apartment building I chose to upgrade, I chose the apartment building in this particular neighborhood because it's in a good neighborhood. It's kind of a lesser building in a better neighborhood. And that's something you can think about too when you consider which properties to upgrade, okay? Because this apartment building is on a big lot, it's almost a 1 acre lot, and it's in a good neighborhood. You know, the building kind of defines the neighborhood since it's a smaller building on a larger lot. And then outside of this large lot are single family homes, kind of nicer properties. And my apartment building is the only one around. So upgrading the inside of the apartments, it kind of, in a small way, it helps define the neighborhood, okay? So I think to help this make sense, let's just compare this to a different apartment building of mine. I have another apartment building elsewhere that I have not upgraded. It's a 3-story building on a small lot, and it's surrounded by other apartment buildings, unlike the one I upgraded that's surrounded by single-family homes, okay? So this other one, this 3-story building on a small lot surrounded by other apartment buildings, there's a bunch of paved spaces and parked cars all over the place. There's a lot of dumpsters out on the margins of the street for each building. So really, no matter how much I upgrade the inside of that other building, those external, those neighborhood realities, they just aren't going to attract the type of tenant that will pay more for better amenities. And it's more difficult for me to change the character of that more crowded neighborhood. So on the property that I did choose to upgrade, there are more wide open spaces. And with building upgrades, I can more or less help define the character myself. So that's part of what went into the decision about which property to select for an upgrade. Now, you might be wondering, how do you get there from where you're at now? Okay, how does an everyday person kind of get into these larger apartment buildings that they own and control themselves so they can have opportunities like I just did? Because when you directly own and control your own property, you realize the simultaneous 5 profit centers that real estate investors enjoy. Well, you often do that by starting out through planting your equity seeds in smaller turnkey real estate properties. In an appreciating environment, your equity will grow fast. And when your equity grows fast, you can sell your turnkeys down the road, do a cash out refinance of your turnkeys to either buy more turnkeys or buy a larger apartment building. Now, you might be wondering how the $250 of monthly cash flow that you have on each one of your single-family turnkey properties is really going to get you ahead, all right? Well, besides that cash flow, just consider this, okay? Here's a scenario. Let's say you bought a turnkey property for $100,000 with a 20% down payment. All right, after 5 years, your $100,000 turnkey property is now worth $134K, 100 up to $134K after 5 years. And that's just at the historic real estate appreciation rate of 6% per year. So your $20,000 down payment now has $34,000 added to it. So that's $54K of equity per turnkey property that you have after those 5 years, okay? But wait, it's more than just $54K of equity that you have, because your tenant was also paying down your loan for you during that time. Besides giving you cash flow, they're paying down your loan. In fact, at today's interest rates, they would have paid it down between $6,000 and $7,000 for you over that 5 years. So add that $6 to $7K to the $54K, and you have $60K of equity for every single-family turnkey property that you own after 5 years. So yes, your $20K down payment, your initial equity position, that would triple to $60K after just 5 years due to the magic of leverage. Okay, leverage, again, is what amplifies wealth. Compound interest is slow, boring, and just a middle-class paradigm. So through the magic of leverage, you've just seen a tripling of your money in a period of just 5 years. And that's just at historic rates of appreciation. It could be lower than that. It could go down in value, and it could certainly be higher than a tripling as well. We're just talking about a long-term average here. So yes, and let's say that you own 5 single-family turnkey properties during that 5-year period. You would have put $20K down 5 different times, so you would have put $100K down total and experience a tripling of that over 5 years, such that you have $300K in equity. All right, this is how real estate investors create wealth, and this is specifically one scenario that's very feasible, very plausible with how you could do it. All right, so after 5 years, with 5 turnkey single-family homes, let's just say that you sell and 1031 exchange your 5 single-family homes, and we'll say that your $300K of equity, we're going to say it's whittled down from $300K to $250K after you pay sales commissions and make-ready expenses on the sale of your 5 single-family turnkeys. And see, you don't pay any tax on that $250,000 gain because the 1031 exchange is a tax-deferred exchange, and there are also no limits to the number of times that you can perform one of these tax-deferred exchanges in the future. So your $250,000, after just 5 years of owning turnkeys, that is enough for a 25% down payment on a $1 million property that you now control, whether that $1 million property is an apartment building or whether you choose to buy 10 or 12 single-family turnkey properties. Or your $250K, that's enough for a 20% down payment on a $1.25 million property that you now control, whether that $1.25 million property is an apartment building or 10 to 12 single-family turnkey properties that you buy. I mean, this is how wealth is built. That right there is a 5-year blueprint for wealth creation for you. Of course, things could go substantially better or substantially worse. We're just talking about long-term averages here. And no doubt about it, you're going to have some hardship or some hard situation during those 5 years. Okay, the month that you have to replace a fence or a garage door on one of your properties, it just won't feel that great for that month. But overall, the 5-year example that I just gave, it is, again, just outlining only 2 of the 5 ways that you're paid with leveraged income property. We really only discussed the appreciation and the loan pay down portion there in that example as well, just 2 of the 5. Of course, there are those 3 other benefits you're enjoying all along as well: the cash flow, the tax depreciation and mortgage interest deductions, and the inflation profiting benefit. It's not a get-rich-quick path. I don't believe in get-rich-quick, but it is a path for getting rich, acquiring durable wealth for yourself. This is Get Rich Education. If you're looking for a company that knows what investors need because they specialize in income property loans, check out Ridge Lending Group right here. I'll be right back. Cash flow real estate investors, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Did you know that you can finance up to 35 income properties all with one lender? Ridge Lending Group specializes in investment property loans, and they do it in almost every U.S. state. Ridge has worked with tens of thousands of real estate investors and homeowners all over the country. They've been doing this for investors for so long that at this point, they've helped more families realize their dreams of becoming real estate investors than any other mortgage lender in the country. To find out more, visit ridgelendinggroup.com.
Are you having a hard time finding great investment properties? Unfortunately, the best deals are rarely found locally. Successful investing begins with the right properties in the right markets. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best deals across the U.S. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly cash flow. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide to passive real estate investing at noradarealestate.com/guide. That's NORADA realestate.com/guide.
This is David Campbell from Hassle Free Cash Flow Investing. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, and don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. We like to keep our eye on technology and innovation here at GRE and how that change affects you as an investor. Besides just being interesting stuff, being a savvy investor means having an awareness of trends so that we know what to invest in. Let's project to where the hockey puck is going and skate to the puck. Now, if you subscribe to our free GRE newsletter, then a while ago you saw the article about how some apartment buildings are now coming equipped with Amazon lockers. Some college campuses have had Amazon lockers for student use for a few years now. It's a program that Amazon actually launched almost 5 years ago when they tried out the concept in New York, Seattle, and London. What is an Amazon locker if you haven't seen one? An Amazon locker is, well, it's just kind of that. It's a large, sturdy set of lockers, usually on a wall. It's often colored yellow and it has the Amazon logo on it. And there are a lot of these little secure doors on the Amazon lockers such that it kind of looks like one of those big communal neighborhood set of mailboxes that you often see outdoors. I think that's the best way I can describe it. And the way that it works with Amazon package delivery, though, is different. The delivery carrier, they scan their ID for access to the Amazon locker, whether that carrier is with UPS or FedEx or the Postal Service. So they put the package in there, and then when the locker door closes, when the package delivery person closes that locker door, the resident of the apartment, they receive an email or a text notification that that package is there in the locker for them. And then for the resident to receive the package, they either scan their key fob or they enter a PIN. So the property managers love this. They no longer have to deal with tenant packages that show up at apartment buildings. So the apartment building residents love it too because they don't have to wait for the property manager to open up the management office to give residents their packages. And gosh, every one of these little innovations, it just creates even less business for traditional brick and mortar retailers. Now that consumer, since they live in an apartment building with an Amazon locker, that resident neither has to go to the brick and mortar retailer, nor do they need to deal with any hassle of only picking up their package from the building manager's office during their certain window of hours. So basically, this means residents can spend even more time at home, and there's even less incentive to patronize that traditional retailer. So many trends are conspiring to place more focus on residential real estate instead of other types. So it's not just the demise of retailers, which has been going on a long time. It's not just that has been putting more of a focus on people's residential homes. It's better things like workflow software, for example, things like Slack and Asana that allow more people to work from home. And in the near-term future, it might even be 3D printers at home that give people even less reason to leave their residences. And all these things have been conspiring to make people's homes even more the center of their lives oftentimes and not less. And that demand from everyday people for spending more time in a residence is good for us as we rent property to them. So if you missed articles like that, you can grab our free newsletter at getricheducation.com. And I want to update you on something as a follow-up from something else I told you about a while back on the show. Okay, that was my application with a major national bank for a 100% loan-to-value home equity line of credit. I told you a while back about how I wanted to pull out that 12 to 15% equity that I have in my primary residence because I want to go ahead and take that and buy some more turnkey single-family homes. Because a familiar refrain, as you all know, the return from home equity is and always will be zero. Well, I'm here to tell you that my application for that home equity line of credit was denied. Yes, it was denied, even though I've got great credit, good debt to income ratio, and a perfect payment history and everything. In fact, not only have I never missed a payment on any account in my entire lifetime, I've never even been late on a payment in my entire life, which is pretty easy to do with automatic payments, by the way. But anyway, I'll tell you the reason that the bank denied me in a moment. But let me just add in, did you know that Ben Bernanke was denied a mortgage not long ago as well? So I don't feel so bad. Yes, the Ben Bernanke, the former chairperson of the Federal Reserve, the one whom preceded today's chair, Janet Yellen, Bernanke was denied, and I don't know the exact reason he was denied, and it was a refinance request that he was denied for. But do you want to know the reason that this major national bank, whose name I'm not going to tell you now since I'm kind of making light of this or making fun of this, the bank denied me for this flimsy reason? They said that I don't have enough equity in my home to qualify. Geez, well then what's the point of even offering a loan product where you're going to accept a combined loan-to-value ratio beyond 80 or 90% and up to 100%? I mean, what a frustrating reason. What's the point of even offering this product then? So I just really don't follow that reasoning. Now, what happened 10 plus years ago leading up to the mortgage meltdown is that a lot of people that owned a primary residence 10 years ago, they saw a run up in value. And what those people went ahead and did is they stripped out available equity as soon as their property appreciated. Well, a lot of those equity strippers, some call them equity harvesters, a lot of those people were criticized for using their home like an ATM, pulling available cash out of their home. Homeowners were almost vilified for that act. Well, there were a very different set of circumstances there. The original home loans, they were often made to people that didn't even have to show their income when they went ahead and applied for a mortgage. They didn't even have to show their income at all. So those loans were irresponsible in the first place. And then some of those homeowners used their home as an ATM to buy consumer items that were fleeting or depreciated in value. And that really brings up what I think is a valid question. What is wrong with using your home as an ATM? Okay, I think that's a valid question. Really, it's more about what you're doing with the funds that you're withdrawing from an ATM. There's nothing wrong with taking money out of an ATM. You can use those funds responsibly or irresponsibly, but the equity in your home provides zero rate of return. Borrowing against those funds incurs a low interest rate, which you can typically beat handily with low-cost property in hand-selected turnkey markets. So I guess for the time being, I'll keep that 15% or so equity position in my primary residence until I can place it somewhere. In the meantime, see if the local real estate market in my area, if it falls 15%, well, then that's a complete wipeout of my equity position. At the same time, if the local real estate market appreciates in value, well, then that appreciation, it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that there's equity in it. If there's an earthquake, that could also wipe out my equity position and a lot more than just my equity position. And there are a lot of Californians that listen to GRE. Well, that's another market with a high probability of earthquakes. Earthquakes are, of course, one calamity type that most people are not insured for, and that's because an earthquake insurance add-on to your policy is just prohibitively expensive. So rather than having a ton of equity locked up in earthquake-prone real estate in Seattle or Anchorage or San Francisco or LA, instead, that equity could be transferred into cash-flowing turnkey real estate in the United States Midwest or South. Now, when you go ahead and do that, it's still your equity. You just made an equity transfer from your primary residence into turnkey property, and you didn't lose anything out of your earthquake-prone property at all. Yet what you accomplished when you separate that equity is, number one, you have less equity exposed to earthquakes. Secondly, earthquakes aside, you're diverse across geographic markets. Thirdly, you've increased your leverage ratio. And then finally, the most immediate impact that you're going to feel is that you've increased your monthly income due to cash flow from tenants when you buy right. So yeah, just a crazy reason that I couldn't get that last piece of cash, that equity, separated from my home. In the meantime, I guess it will just stay vulnerable and provide zero return like equity always does. The more equity that you have in a property, really the less control you have in that property. And most people think it's just the opposite. Most people think that if you have a home paid off, you're in control. Well, what's true is exactly the opposite. And I've talked about this at length on other episodes, especially episode number 46. Just consider, too, overall, whether this is home loans or not, just think about the borrower versus debtor relationship. When a loan is made, the borrower is the one that controls the loan. That debtor is the one that controls the loan. Okay, did you ever give a loan to a family member? Okay, if you ever gave a loan to a family member, you soon find out who is in control of the loan. It's the one that borrowed the money. And look at how that works in real estate and everywhere else. The one that borrowed the money, boy, they're the one that get the workouts, that get the short sales, that get the buy downs. The debtor is the one in control of a loan. Okay, the one that the money is owed to is not in control. And it's just rarely been a better time to be a debtor than when interest rates are still here on the floor at historic lows. Well, I want to wrap up this week by really reading my own column, my own article that I wrote for the Rich Dad Advisors. Okay, this was published in the Rich Dad Advisors blog last week, and it got quite a bit of positive feedback from it. I guess it was more than a week ago that it was published, but yeah, I want to read it right here to close out the show. This is titled, Why Live Below Your Means is Bad Advice. Why live below your means is bad advice. So here we go. And rather than plainly reading it, I'm going to bring some color and some life into this article that I recently had published here. I am constantly baffled why the common advice, be sure to live below your means, is so pervasive and enduring. Sadly, it just underscores the scarcity mentality that has affected society. Kids are misled like this when they're young and impressionable. Kids learn live below your means from their first financial quote-unquote teachers, their parents, and it sticks with the next generation for a lifetime. When parents say live below your means, they're planting a bad seed inside their children. It tells kids that they should get used to sacrificing some of the better things in life. Even some of the best things in life should be sacrificed. Whether it's a better education, a memorable vacation, buying a better home, or even seizing a great investment opportunity. Well, you can control these things with cash flowing assets. In fact, POUR is an acronym for passing over opportunity repeatedly. Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that helped replace my scarcity mentality with one of abundance and expanding my means rather than living below my means. When one says live below your means, it usually applies to finances. Well, if it made any sense with money, then wouldn't at least a thread of it apply to life's other facets? Okay, can you imagine if this deflating mantra were extrapolated elsewhere in life? For example, here's this. I don't ever want you to try out for quarterback of the football team. Please don't even try. You might be good enough to make it, but you should be satisfied just being the ball boy. Live below your means. Why try for an A in algebra? That seems beyond your means and capabilities. A grade of C is sufficient. Live below your means. Do you see what I'm saying? Live below your means is not prudent advice elsewhere in life. It stifles ambition. It stunts growth. It shouldn't be applicable to finances either. Why live a life where you only have the bare essentials of what you need when a life of plenty is so easily within your reach? Once an abundance mindset replaces the scarcity mindset that you learned from a young age, a growth environment is cultivated inside you. There's nothing wrong with exceeding your needs. The truth is, it's often the unnecessary wants that enhance our quality of life. What about that rug that you step on after you get out of the shower? Do you really need that rug that you step on after you get out of the shower? Or is it just nice to not have to put your bare foot on the cold tile floor? Okay. Couldn't you live below your means and do without it? Do you need to have satellite television? Or is it just nice to watch the NFL when you seek some occasional entertainment? Did you need to go to Maui for 2 weeks last winter? Or did it enhance your quality of life and refresh you and lead to personal fulfillment when you tried surfing and result in lasting and irreplaceable memories with your family? If you're one that lives a scarcity-based life, a life of only what one needs, then you may be living a life below your means. One cannot clip enough coupons, buy enough of the cheaper paper towels, or seek out the less expensive gas station often enough to create lasting wealth. That just doesn't work. No one shrinks their way to wealth. So rather than focusing time and energy living below your means, use those same faculties and resources to instead become educated and secure some big investment wins, thereby extending your means. You can only cut so much to the downside, but there is unlimited growth upside to extending your means. So consider not telling anyone, live below your means. It builds brick walls around people, and it can result in a life of sacrifice, settling for less, and regret. It is the worst sage advice that I have ever heard. There you go. That's the end of the article. You can read it and all of my articles at getricheducation.com/blog. I really want to thank you for stopping by this week. We'll be back next week with episode 99. As always, you should have had a greater return from the time that you spent listening than the time that you spent with me. Now go out there and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
Cash flow real estate investors nationwide and worldwide, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Forbes has rated Memphis, Tennessee as the #1 cash flowing market in the world. Our good friends at Mid-South Homebuyers have been Memphis's premier turnkey real estate provider for 14 years with a stellar reputation and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Owner Terry Kerr was born and raised in Memphis. Yeah, he knows the market and has renovated and sold over 1,000 houses in the Memphis area. Find out what their many repeat buyers already know. Their houses are completely renovated, even come with a 1-year builder's warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're a perfect fit for the first-time out-of-state investor or the seasoned investor diversifying their portfolio. Mid-South Homebuyers' friendly staff makes investing easy. Learn more at midsouthhomebuyers.com or give them a call at 901-217-HOME. The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.